Hey, what's up guys? Mergerman4 here, and earlier this week saw the premiere of Orphan 55, the third episode of Series 12, written by returning writer Ed Hime. So, now that it's aired, how does it hold up? So, Orphan 55 perhaps had a bit of unfair pressure on it. First off, it comes immediately after the opening two-parter of this season, which had a massive scale to it and was generally really well received. I personally really enjoyed it, but also Orphan 55 is the second episode written by Ed Hime, who previously wrote It Takes You Away last season, which, kind of like Spyfall, was generally really well received. I think from what I've seen, it's probably the best received Series 11 episode. It's definitely one of my favorites from last season. So Ed Hime has built up a bit of a reputation. Here's the thing, you don't want to get your hopes up too high. I feel like I wasn't too excited for this episode because based off of like the next time and everything we knew about it, it did kind of look like a standard filler episode. And that is kind of what it turned out to be. But I ended up being disappointed with this episode for other reasons. I didn't have any particular expectations for it, but unfortunately, I have to say, this is the first episode of the Whittaker-Chibnall era that I've actually disliked, which is a real shame. Now, don't get me wrong, like I've said before, I did really enjoy Series 11 overall, and it did have plenty of flaws, but I never disliked any of the episodes. At worst, it got around maybe mediocre. This, to me, I'm hoping it's just a one-off. It's going to be the exception, because you know what? It is pretty common that there's at least one episode of every series that is a letdown. There's only 4 seasons, I think, that don't have a single episode below mediocre for me, and those are Series 1, Series 4, Series 5, and Series 11. Every other season has at least one episode that I've disliked. So, hopefully, Orphan 55 is that one of Series 12. Obviously, we're going to have to wait and see with the rest of the season, but to be honest, it doesn't dampen my hopes for the rest of the season because it still looks really good and it started off really well. And this episode never really enticed me too much to begin with. So I do have higher hopes for the rest of the season. I would be surprised if I didn't like the rest of the season. At the very least, I expect to enjoy pretty much the rest of the episodes of the season, even if one or two of them are bad down the line. But anyway, now I've said that, I'm going to go into why I don't like it and why I'm not a big fan of it. I think for me, the main problem is it was just a really messy episode. I think it was good in concept. It has a good idea. A holiday spa that's built unknowingly to, everyone who's vacationing there, built on this planet that has been completely destroyed, and the inhabitants of that destroyed planet, the mutated remnants of what used to live on that world, start to attack the hotel spa. And I think that's an interesting story there, and it's got some good character ideas as well. I really loved the relationship that Ryan has with the character Bella. They kind of build up a bit of a romantic interest, and I thought that played very well. And there were a couple of other relationships as well that I think had potential, but they fell flat in execution. You have, I can't remember their names, but you have the green-haired guy and his son, and also Bella and her mom. We'll talk about that later. That had some potential, but that ended up being one of the worst parts of the episode for me in terms of how it was done. I will say as well that I actually really love the monsters. They're actually properly scary, and the design is great. The only real issue with the monsters is that we never actually get to see them attacking anybody. We get some really scary, effective shots of them as they're approaching people, or we hear them killing people, but we don't actually get to see them attack anybody. That kind of would have sold it a bit better, but I think probably the monsters were the best part about this episode for me. I also think that the episode starts well, as well, where you have the TARDIS crew in the TARDIS. They're cleaning up from a previous adventure, and then Graham pops out. He's got these coupons from somewhere else in the TARDIS and puts them together into this cube, and it turns out it's a teleport cube, and it takes them all to this holiday spa. This is where I think the problems sort of begin, because ironically, despite this being the shortest episode of the Whittaker era, it feels the most rushed, and I'm pretty confused as to why this one ended up being the shortest, when it feels like it has so much going on and there's no real room to breathe. We barely have any time to establish ourselves at, I think it's called the Tranquility Spa, before trouble starts going down, like maybe around the 3.5-4 minute mark of the episode. Keep in mind 30 seconds of that would have been the title sequence, another 30 to a minute was, if not more than that, was in the TARDIS before they actually go to the Tranquility Spa. So at most, you've got maybe 2.5-3 minutes actually introduced to the spa before things start going south and trouble ensues. And that just didn't work for me, because you don't get a chance to connect to the setting or the characters there. You're just placed there, and then suddenly the action gets going. For me, I think we should have had the opening 10 minutes should have just been getting introduced to the holiday spa. It should have been slower paced and everyone relaxing, everything seems to be going fine, and then around the 10-minute mark, that's when things can start going wrong. That would have been much more effective for me, because it's hard to care about where you're at or the characters around you when you don't have any time to really process them. This also results in a lot of the characters, the arcs that they go on, or their personal journeys, they fall flat because there's not enough time to care about them or to establish them. And for me, the only character that really works is Bella, and like I previously mentioned, I did really enjoy her relationship with Ryan. I thought that worked really well, but other than that, I thought most of the guest characters just didn't work at all. You have this elderly couple where the older man, he goes missing very early on after the creatures start to attack the spa, and for some reason, instead of killing him like they do with everyone else at the spa, they take him outside of the dome area that's protecting them from the outside elements. And so that actually is what ends up propelling the plot a bit, where they actually go outside to try to rescue him. But there's no reason given why they take him in the first place, while they killed everybody else. And then they bring him to the truck that they go out in and let him talk to his wife, and I don't know, it's just really weird. There's not really any story justification for that to happen. The other weird thing too is, similar to the Ghost Monument, we're told that the exterior, the outside, it's toxic and it's really damaging. We see, again, like the Ghost Monument, we see no evidence of that. We're just told it, but there's no stakes because we never see that taking effect on anybody. At the very least, we could have seen the older man outside, and maybe he's, has these blisters on his face or something, because we're told that being outside for 10 minutes, you get solar blisters or whatever. To at least give some stronger sense of the danger. We see them, our main characters, running outside, but once they get back underground, there's no ill effects that have happened to them. It just kind of lowers the stakes, makes it feel less dangerous. And the elderly woman, she was quite annoying. I didn't mind her on my first watch through, but my second watch through, it did start to grate on my nerves a bit. And she eventually does sacrifice herself so that the rest of the group can get away. But because she was just kind of annoying throughout, you don't really care all that much, you know? You also have, as previously mentioned, the green-haired people, the green-haired guy and his son. They don't really do much of anything at all. They're just kind of there. Ultimately, the only thing that they do is the sun helps to create the fuel that they need to teleport off the planet at the end. But that could so easily have been done by the Doctor. And even then, even if, one of those characters was pointless enough, you have two of them. You have the son and the dad. And the dad's like this incompetent guy, and the son can do everything. And it's just, I don't know, their characters don't really add anything to the story. There's a good core idea there. You have the son and the son is better at the father's job, and then the father kind of refuses to accept that the son is actually better at it. There's an interesting relationship there that could have been explored more had there been more time and had there been less other characters to focus on. And then the other main ones, you also have Hyphen with a 3 who's just there, as well as this other security guard guy who is also just there. But the other main characters are Kane and Bella. So I guess Kane is the person who started the spa. I thought she was just a security person, but then later Bella says, that she kind of mentions that it was her spa or whatever. And I kind of got really confused because I thought that she was just a security person there. And I guess not. That wasn't well established at all. But this episode has a stupid twist that comes out of absolutely nowhere, where Bella reveals that Kane is her mother. And there's no setup to it. There's no hints to it. It's just a terrible twist. There's no way you could have seen it coming, and it doesn't seem to fit into the story at all from what we've, heard so far. The closest hint to anything going on with Bella is that we know that someone sabotaged the spa. That's the only thing that we hear that we realize later is attributed to Bella's character, before this twist happens, where she turns on Kane, and at first it just seems like, she's now the bad guy of the episode. But then she reveals that Kane's her mother. They haven't even shared a scene up to this point. Earlier in the episode, Bella says that her mother died, so we couldn't have predicted it. And it's such a lazy twist because there's no build up to it, and ultimately nothing happens from it. It doesn't affect anything. The story could stay exactly the same if they weren't related, and Bella just had some other more generic reason. It wasn't if Bella just had not a personal vendetta, just a more general vendetta against the thought of the spa on this orphan planet. I was just shocked in the worst possible way because it made no sense. And then later in the episode, Kane seems to sacrifice herself and disappears from the episode, so you assume she's dead. Right at the end of the episode, she pops up again to go help Bella fighting off the, whatever they're called, the drags. Where did she come from? And none of the characters acknowledge it. Like, they don't say, what, where did she come from? No, it's acted like she was with them the whole time. But literally the last time we saw her, she was sacrificing herself to give the rest of the group more time. So where'd she come from? Something's missing from there. That was weird. I don't know how that even happened. Also, the resolution to the episode as well, I thought was very jarring, where the Doctor just lets them all get blown up instead of trying to find another way. Like, she doesn't even try to deactivate the bombs. Like, I could understand it if either she tried and failed to deactivate the bombs that Bella had said, or if the creatures themselves had somehow activated the bombs. But no, the Doctor knew full well what was going on, and she didn't bother to try to stop it. And it was even more jarring because on second watch I realized she's kind of giving this lecture to the leader of the drags. I'm not sure how she could tell it was the leader, but sure, alright. where she's saying, you know, look at what humanity's mistakes brought you to. Don't make the same mistakes again. And then she lets them all blow up. The Doctor is a character who will always try to give species second chances. She's not just going to blow them up on a whim. By the way, I realized I just mentioned, you know, that the dregs are the result of humanity's mistakes. Yes, there's another twist in the episode, and it turns out that Orphan 55 is actually Earth. And this in and of itself isn't a bad idea, but the way it's executed was really lazy, because it was exactly like The Mysterious Planet, another Doctor Who episode way back in '86, except done worse. And I'm not even kidding, it's like exactly the same. The Doctor and her companions, or in the case of Mysterious Planet, companion, land on this planet that has been desolated. They go underground, find what seems to be an old remnant of civilization, some sort of a train station, and they find a sign with an Earth language on it that states that it is a location, a station, you know, somewhere on Earth. And then the Doctor and the companions realize, oh, well, this planet is actually Earth. It's exactly the same in both.
Novosibirsk. It's a Siberian underground station. This is Earth.
Well, I suppose there is a 1,000,000,000 to 1 chance there was a place called Marble Arch on Ravelox.
Well, Doctor, we're on Earth, aren't we?
Except this time, they're in the middle of running away from the dregs, so the companions have no time to process that until much later in the episode, and then it just makes it feel really awkward, and you lose that emotional gut punch. So that was weird. Yeah, the other big thing about this episode that a lot of people have been taking issue with, the episode ends with this really big speech about, you know, global warming and humans having to stand up to save the planet. I completely agree with the message, but for the very first time, all throughout this era so far, there have been plenty of complaints that the show has become too political. It's been too on the nose, too much of sledgehammer political writing being implemented in the episodes. I haven't agreed with that until now. This is the first time that I feel like the politics in an episode, at least of this era, have been overdone and shoved a bit too much in your face. And I think the reason for that isn't even necessarily because of the speech itself or the way that the speech is delivered. Honestly, I think it's the placement in the episode. I feel like it would have been much better suited if it wasn't in the TARDIS, if they had solved the problems with the dregs instead of blowing them up. Oh, by the way, they leave Kane and Bella to die instead of going back there and trying to save them or whatever. But if they defeated the dregs and the Doctor is more kind of talking to them about it, including Bella and Kane, maybe if the speech was toned down a little bit more. But I feel like the main issue with it that takes me out of it is that we leave the main setting of the story just to say that. I feel like it would feel more natural and better implemented if it was still within the main story. But it feels like we leave the main story just to be told that. And then the episode ends with one of the most awkward endings I've ever seen, where the Doctor doesn't even properly finish her speech. She's just kind of like, you need to take care of the planet. And then it cuts to a drag, just kind of like doing a little roar, and then the episode ends. And I felt that was really poorly done as well. It just felt so awkward. Honestly, they should have just kept it. It's fine if you don't want to finish the speech. They shouldn't have cut back to the drag. That just felt so weird, especially because we've already left the location and the dregs have already been taken care of. It just didn't work. And I literally, when the episode ended, I was like, what? That's how it ends? Like, out loud, and it shocked me. Again, not in a good way. I don't know. I mean, it's not the worst episode ever. It's still entertaining for the most part. It's just really really messy. And that's the big issue with it. I don't know whether the script was this messy, or if it was a problem with how it was shot, or just the way it was cut down in editing. It's difficult to tell what the issue is. Some of the core problems were in the script, I think, but I think a lot of them could have been fixed, or at the very least papered over, if it was put together better. I don't know. It's just a disappointment, to say the least.
Well, this is kind of awkward, but I actually forgot to say what I was going to score the episode, so I'll just say it here. I'm going to be giving Orphan 55 a 3.5 out of 10.
And sadly, it also brings down our Series 12 average, which started so promising at a 9. It's now brought it down to a 6.3 out of 10. Well, we've got 7 more episodes to potentially bump it back up. Let's hope it starts next week with Nikola Tesla's Night of Terror. I have to say, I'm pretty excited about that episode. I'm a lot more excited about it than I was Orphan 55 this week, particularly because I find historicals really fascinating. I think the historicals last season were among the best episodes of the season, and the trailer just makes it just looks really entertaining, like a lot of fun. So I'm looking forward to that. I'm not going to let Orphan 55 get me down. But yeah, so that's my thoughts and opinions on Ed Hime's Orphan 55. Please put your thoughts and opinions down in the comments below, and I'll see you next week with Nikola Tesla's Night of Terror.